Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Eris and today I'm actually going to film live because I want you guys to work with me on the process and everything. Well, what we're actually making today is something pretty simple, but it's still a two-part video because I am actually supposed to review or rather unbox and review a product after I have made this. So today's product is actually going to be a leather laptop sleeve. And I'm going to use this as my measurements. So it really depends on the device that you're making it for, but I'll just show you guys how I'm going to work with this one. So let's see. I am actually using this blue well, you can call it faux leather or imitation leather, but I'm actually using this for most of it, and I'm just going to add this for a little designing. And for the flap, I'm just using these. Sorry, I have to cover it. I'm using these, so I will just use this as a chance to even show you guys how to fix these things. You need to get the setters. They basically look like punches, but the tops are a little different. All right, so now let's create the pattern that we're going to use to cut this out. Let me set this aside. And, okay, so yeah, this is my MacBook that I'm going to use to get the measurement for this thing. But first, I need to get some thick paper, or like some people call it chipboard, and I'm going to use that to like this. I'm going to use that to just get the pattern out. So I'm going to grab a marker here and just. So this way I get the exact size of what I want, and it's not too big, it's not too small. So this is what I'm going to use to make my thingy. Set this aside. But right before I cut it out, because it's a laptop, so you want to give the space, the extra space rather. Let me grab my rulers. I'm just going to add 2 centimeters on every side, and that should compensate rather for the thickness of the laptop. So let me just quickly do that. I'm just going to add 2 centimeters all the way around. So this should cover for both the thickness of the laptop and a little allowance to sew. So this is what I'm going to use for the main thing here, and since I'm going to make it have a flap, okay, let's save on paper. What's the best way to do this? Okay, let's get an angle. So I'm going to use the back for the flap. So let's say 3 centimeter in, 3 centimeter in, then I'm just going to do it diagonal. I'm just freestyling these parts because I want it to be symmetrical. So you can use this method, or you could just make it like a round type of flap. Either way works. You just want to have, but for me, I want the envelope type of feel. So I'm just going to round this a bit. So our button is going to be here. And just for the design and all, I actually want to use the orange. I hope it's enough. The orange is just going to be like this. So I'm definitely going to have to do this again, but just to give an idea of how I want this to turn out. So Oh, what is wrong? Let's use a ruler instead. So the orange is just going to be used to outline this. All right, so let's get our material and we'll trace the first one. I actually want to round the bottom, but just for uniformity, I'm going to cut it after gumming but before sewing. And I'm using a marker pen here. It's something that you could wipe off after you're done drawing on it. So I'm just going to is going to be one side and another side. And because I wanted to have a flap, I'm going to now cut this into the flap. So that was what I meant by it's a one-use pattern type of arrangement. Immediately after you're done, you're going to have to strip it. But if it's something that you want to use again, I would advise you trace this flap on another paper. But because I know I'm not going to do this again, or even if I have to, it's going to be different because the laptop is going to. So let me just trim this. So basically what I'm going to do is this piece that I'm making right now, I'm now going to add it to this one. So it's going to now be one piece. So don't forget, there is no standard size. Your laptop is going to determine. So I'll just come back to this one here and just draw out the flap. And some wet wipes. Scrub this line off before it dries. All right, let's cut. Okay, so let us make the detail first. Let me even see if it's enough because it's a very small fit. Oh yeah, it's enough. Okay, so let's see what's the best way to do this, because I want this to sort of really contrast and I want this to start from here. And if you remember, it was 3. Oh, I'm always looking for my marker pen. I'm always looking for the thing because it's always so tiny. Okay, so this one we have to be really careful. It has to be really nice, really neat. I think we have to. Okay, let's see where we can squeeze this. Oh, we have to do diagonally. It's the only way. Okay, so let's see. Mark here, I will mark here, and then I just trace this over it. So I actually have to gum this first before I can even sew it, before I can sew it to this piece. So that means that I have to cut it and maybe leave like a little allowance. So I'm just going to come here. I'm just using the width of my ruler because this is almost 3 centimeters, and I'm just following the edge of this to give an angle. This is the easiest way to do this. If not, you're going to it's too wide. Okay, oh yeah, this is even better. Let's use this one instead. And then that thing can be changed later. So I have to maintain this, then literally carve it out. So I'm using the 2 sides just using this for the outline. This is just so it's not just like basic and boring. That is why I'm doing it like this. And instead of having like a curve, I want it to be straight. So I'm just going to do my lazy man's method and just do it like this. So that way we have this. For the sake of neatness, I'm not going to cut the lower part yet. I want to sort of trim everything together, so let me just take out the excess and sort of loop it a bit. Okay, let's do it like this. So let's move this. This is the one that's going to have the flap. So what we're going for is something like this, sort of just at the edge here. So we need it to be neat. So first of all, we have to gum it down. I'm going to sew it down too, yes. I'm just going to come. So I didn't cut it to the edge. You can still see this line, and that is what I'm going to use as a guide to just, because if there's something I have learned the hard way from craft is that it's much safer to have an allowance, like extra. It's better when you have extra than when you don't have enough. That is when it's a problem. So this is what our line is going to be, but first we have to sew here first. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I sewed just this inner part. We trim threads and any loose variables. So you can already see this is what I'm still going to trim out later on. But now I want to glue this one down so it doesn't shift while I'm sewing. So when I'm closing the whole thing, I get to sew through this one once with the blue thread. So just enough. Since we're going to sew it, we don't really have to do the typical way, but here the focus is more on making it super neat. So now I'm just going to come carefully as close as possible to the edge. You may still have to trim maybe like a millimeter off so it's totally uniform and really neat. I'm just going to like, align the corners together. So it's going to be like this. So I'm going to turn it back, and before this side dries up, I'm going to, since I'm planning to hide this stub, because now I'm going to fix it. Just going to pass it through and put the other side. Then, like I said before, These are the setters. They are slightly different. This one has like a tiny knob and this one has a hole. So I'm going to use the knobby one on that side. So I'm just going to take my hammer. I want to put this in the hole a bit. And I'm hitting in a circular motion. I'm going to take my hammer. This other side to it. So just for strength, I'm going to just sew this line. I'm going to sew here, but first let's punch our hole so we don't have it moving around. Quickly attach the other part of the stub. So it's basically a rivet backing. You push it into the back. Then you have this part. Then you take the second piece. Then you take the second piece, and since it has a hole, so the stub enters the hole, and just what I intend to do now is I'm going to apply a little bit of contact adhesive to this side, then lay this side on it, then I trim before. And if you remember in the beginning, I said I wanted to curve the base. So I'm just going to add a little bit to the edge. Let it get a little sticky. And yeah, so I'm just going to add this piece here. So it sits next to this one. So you don't need to trim a lot, just usually I try to do either 1 or 2 millimeter, so that way it doesn't really change the shape or design. Use a smaller ruler, I think, to make more sense. So you just need a little, so all the carefully. The best way is as you're cutting, you're turning it, you're not moving your knife. I mean, you're moving your knife a bit, but you're moving this, not your cutting hand. So you say a prayer and hope you don't spoil the whole thing. Okay, so now I'm going to sew everything once.